2021 has arrived indeed, and I'm back now with my review on the game that takes place in 2077. Cyberpunk 2077 to be exact. Before we get into the review, I just wanted to remind you guys that it would be really helpful to hit that like and subscribe before we get into things. Really helps out the channel. Really appreciate it, guys. So let's get right into the review of things. This game was something I had high hopes for, certainly more than others. I was prepared to play this game earlier back in April 2020. However, that went through a delay, followed by many others. Although it worked out back then in April because there was Final Fantasy VII Remake. Then in November, there were a number of games I wanted to play, so having it delayed once again, going into December now, worked out for me personally, even though it went gold, meaning it was finalized. After playing and beating the main story with 60 plus hours under my belt via PC and having to explore and side quests and all that stuff factored into it, the verdict is that it's a fucking mess. Honestly, the biggest takeaway from this whole situation right off the bat is that it really needed more time in the oven. Over the month of December, we've seen so many glitches and bugs from this game non-stop for obvious reasons. Seriously, while a number of these glitches are funny to watch, as a player myself, it really messed with my immersion with this game. A game that cries for complete immersion from its players. Where do I begin with this? Let's go with the AI. To say the least, it's abysmal. They're just all over the place, figuratively and literally. Recently, I tried messing with the police just to see how hard it is to get away from the cops after getting like 4 stars, which is considered a high amount, and it was both hard and easy, if that makes sense. Fighting against the cops is hard, but for all the wrong reasons. As soon as you commit a crime, cops just pop out of nowhere, especially behind you, and start blasting your ass. On one hand, they thank you for your services, for helping them get rid of the bad guys on the streets. The very next minute, just out of nowhere, they just start blasting your ass. Must I emphasize, what the hell? I just helped you guys and all of a sudden you just open fire on me? What the flying fuck? What did I do to piss you guys off? And they don't just spawn. They infinitely and quickly spawn as you take them out. It's almost like fighting a freaking Hydra. They don't even come in cop cars, they don't take the time to kind of have that build up. They just appear out of thin air and put holes in you. Eventually, you'll get just overwhelmed with all the bullets and plasma blasts riddling your cyber body. Now, admittedly, turrets coming down from the buildings is pretty badass if you ask me. Too bad they don't mean much. But let's get back on the track with the cops here. They are just so inconsistent. One moment you'll be taking bullets like it's nothing, then all of a sudden they have godlike accuracy and one-shot your ass even if you're in your car, as you try to make a getaway in lower star crimes. Speaking of which, if you're trying to jack a vehicle during a 4-star crime, well, you're shit out of luck because those things explode instantly as you try to do your best to get into those cars and make a getaway. Furthermore, you can't hack your way out of these situations because the police can lock your cyberwares. So it kind of takes you out of the whole trying to be the best in the city. You should be able to level up your way and unlock a perk where the cops can't, essentially block your cyberwares or whatever. That could be, something a little more immersive in a way. It feels more progressive, right, for your character. But here, nonetheless, the only solution that in my experience I found is just keep running on foot, a couple blocks down. That's it. They just kind of run after you, but don't really bother to use any other means to cut you off, like using vehicles to chase you down any further. During higher star crimes, they don't even send in helicopters or armored combat vehicles or units. Not even those robots that look like Ed 209 from RoboCop, right? Those walkers, but only those dumb looking drones. Once you make your getaway, the police just act like nothing ever happened. That's how the police AR are. That's the police for you in Night City. Real good stuff there, guys. No bounties, no cops sending hitmen after you, no corrupted system, nothing. It lacks any personality at all whatsoever. It makes GTA's cops look like a godsend. They feel so much more organic in comparison. Speaking of organic, the rest of the AI just lack even the decent amounts of that organic finesse that they seem to have been promised with. NPCs are just drones that look like they're doing something, but it just feels like they're walking within a miniature of a city of sorts, if that makes sense. Like, that's cool, but they don't do much else. Like, when you point your gun at them, they just kind of sit there and have their hands out. While again, GTA feels way more organic by running and screaming. I mean, sometimes they do it, but a lot of times it's minor stuff like bumping into someone, or when I do a double jump and I land on someone by accident. It's like really minor, and yet they just go woo, like fucking chickens with their heads cut off. I just find this whole thing so ironic, considering that the city is filled with NPCs, but it just feels kind of dead once you take a good look at them. They don't do anything beyond being scared and not resist. They just kind of drone on, really. They just walk around like pretending to be organic. They pretending to be being part of the city life, but I don't really feel it. It just really doesn't seem to really feel organic.
Are you looking for someone?
It really seemed like CD Projekt Red led on that this was going to be one of the revolutionary features, was the whole, NPCs with their own daily routines sort of thing. Yeah, none of that definitely was not found here. Fighting the bad guys feels the same too, pretty much like fighting the cops. They're just all over the place. So yeah, the AI, dumb. I really want to say that the gameplay side of things is really fun, but that is just riddled with actual annoying bugs. For instance, I couldn't skip time even though I'm not under attack or anything like that, or I'm well with away from any of the vendors, right? Some vendors don't let you do that right in front of them. You have to like walk out of their store and then you can skip time to reset their inventory. But for some reason, there were times where I got stuck on that one thing, or on my skip time UI or menu. It just didn't let me do it, so I had to reload my save, and then I got it working again, thankfully. But it's just annoying. Whenever I try to keep the target alive as I carried them to the next points, there's instances where I dropped them down for a second, and then for some reason they count that as a high fall, so they just splat to the ground and they die right then and there. So during those missions where I do want them alive and try to bring them to the car or whatever, I gotta reload the save, man. It's like that is such a really annoying thing that I gotta go through at times. There was also that common glitch with the early boss popping in and out of the elevator in the Arasaka Tower. That was one of the glitches I went through, like along with everyone else. That seemed like a very universal glitch at the time. I think that got patched out, but I don't know. I can't say. Sometimes I get stuck trying to jack into a computer or whatever those access points are, and try to do the hacking thing. And then when I try to get out, I can't do diddly squat because I'm stuck there. That's another bug. Random UI elements get stuck on my screen, and it actually gets very distracting during the important exchanges of dialogue. I've had that happen to me a couple of times. And then this one's probably unique to me, but maybe it's happened to other people too. My electric-based mods, like my knuckles and stuff like that, the electric punching and stuff, for that example, and then also the electric-based missiles that you can shoot from your hand, like the projectile system you have on your arm. Those electric-based mods just seem to randomly turn into the physical-based mods. I don't know. That's just really strange to me. That's like one of the strangest ones I've come across that happened numerous times throughout my experience. There was also this very dreadful bug where if you have a save file bigger than 8 megabytes on your PC, at least, well, that was what I heard anyway, it'll get corrupted in a looter shooter. Like, my god, dude. Thankfully, that was patched out, but the list still goes on. The polish is so lacking that it's really baffling, considering what was going on the production side of things. They needed more time, and yet higher-ups at CD Projekt Red really blew it by rushing the product out the door, knowing the game, it was not finished. It was not in a complete state, at least close to it. On top of that, the game was unplayable on previous gen consoles. While PC is the best way to play this game, if you have the right parts for it, the game is still pretty rough. Even on my rig, which is a decent rig with the 1070, it ran fine during like the calmer side of things, but during the heavy sides of combat or like just a lot of action on the screen, the frames dropped, and that became super noticeable during the end games of things because there's just a lot of stuff happening on your screen. The optimization side of things is just really inconsistent. There are those people out there that say, well, it works for me. I mean, great. But that's my point. It doesn't work across all systems. PS5, PS4, PCs, even a number of people with the beefy rigs, with the 30 series RTX cards are chugging like the rest of us at times. The game itself is just all buggy as hell, and that's something no system can fix, with or without the latest PC parts. The game needed more time. CD Projekt Red sent specific instructions to reviewers on how to present the game so that they can just like sneak in and get those launch day sales so that the players find out after buying the game. And it was so bad on the older systems that even Sony stepped in and took that right off their shelves, well, their digital shelves, of the PlayStation Store completely. Well, not before CD Projekt Red saying they'll do all the refunds, they'll process them, and they threw in Sony's name in there without complete communication. And let's not forget, even Microsoft is in on this action here. They're not having that either, so they're doing the refunds too. Although they haven't taken off their store completely just yet, I guess, or not at this point. But with that all said, this whole scene was just an absolute disaster. Man, I mean, we've come to the point where we can't have this stuff now. Like, Sony won't allow it, certainly. So games like Fallout 76 and other buggy AAA games that have come out nowadays, those dev companies, they're going to have to step up their game, like, literally, which is a good thing, because Cyberpunk 2077 right now is the sole example as to why games need to be ready by launch day, not after. We've seen that too many times. I remember my friend Danny telling his experiences throughout his playthrough on the PlayStation 4. At first, he wasn't getting much coming out of that situation, so he thought this whole thing was exaggerated. However, as time went on, he had crash after crash, while the frame drops were super bad during combat. I definitely can believe that. It got so bad to the point where he decided to just drop the game entirely until it gets a major overhaul via patches. Like, I really felt bad for Danny and anyone else really who got it bad on previous consoles. But CD Projekt Red really insisted, I guess, that it was playable on those consoles. Like, they didn't say anything or nothing that would indicate its state on those consoles, but that's just sort of the impression that we had until people bought the game. I can talk about the bugs, glitches, and the drama surrounding this game, but let's talk about the game itself, the actual core of things. Even if the game is clean, Cyberpunk also suffered a number of problems. I just feel like at this point, with that in mind, I feel like the bugs and glitches were just the tip of the iceberg. A big tip, but an iceberg no less, where the bottom is, well, massive. The game, for what it was going to be, as it was built up to whatever it was, with all the promises, the hype, and the build-up, it really lacked the depth that I was looking for. And a lot of the experiences you feel in the game are just arbitrary and shallow. The city life, the abilities you get, the vehicles, There really isn't no point of getting the vehicles other than style, of course, but you can get the vehicles for free throughout your playthrough, the side quests and whatnot. Hell, you can get the cheapest vehicle and you're pretty much set. So you can rock those little mini vehicles. I forget what they're called. They're they're smart cars in real life, but you can literally stick to that, and that's your main ride throughout your playthrough. Or you can get the Kusanagi motorcycle that looks like the one from Akira. That's pretty low on the cost, so you can get that and look really cool, and then that's what you can use throughout your playthrough, pretty much. What vehicle you pick doesn't matter all that much. So there are no missions at the moment, at least, where it requires a fast car, like a car mission where you need to make a delivery real fast. So things like that. That's out of the window for now. Now, as I say that for the vehicles and the driving side of things, the vehicles themselves do look nice. They look really stylish. They look cool. I dig it. I dig their designs. I just wish that you can upgrade those vehicles with the cyberware and maybe weapons of sorts. That could have been really cool. Maybe, again, DLC. So with that, you're not really rewarded for having a fast vehicle. I mean, you do have one side quest with the racing, but that's it. There's no separate sort of mini game mode with the racing. That could have been its own separate thing. Maybe that will be in the DLC, but because of that missing, pretty much, there's really no need, like I said, to have a fast vehicle. So you can save your money definitely for all the weapons and cyberware and all the modding parts you need for your weapons and yourself, etc. Your money is really going to go into that, really, instead of the vehicles. What also felt arbitrary were the dialogue choices. There really isn't. There really isn't no sense of choice. There really is no consequence from the choices you make from your dialogue. It doesn't increase your skills like in Fallout would. There's no sense of tension, as the outcome is pretty much the same no matter what you choose. Even by the end game, whatever choice you made, you just revert back to your last save right before you begin your final mission. That's it. You don't get to live with the choices you made if it just feels shallow, unfulfilling in that sense. If there was something that the game really needed to get right, was the dialogue choices actually factoring into your experience so that it actually felt like there's substance for your immersion. Even after factoring in what lifestyle you choose, those special dialogue choices really mean nothing. For those who are curious, I did choose Corpo, and choosing the Corpo dialogue didn't do all that much as I compared it to the other lifestyles, on YouTube. Really does nothing. Yes, you do get some differences, notably during the beginning of things, but that's really it. It really does not change the game's course, no matter what lifestyle you choose or what life path you want to go with. Nomad, Street Kid, Corpo, nothing beyond the beginning. CD Projekt Red had a number of promises for the game that were unkept, but the one I really wanted to point out is the severe lack of customization on your character. There are some you can change up, sure, but for a game that's all about changing out your body parts, you know what I mean? Like cybernetics, robotics, sci-fi, the future, it's just really baffling if you factor all that in, that it is actually this dry. There are people who walk around with gold plating on their skin, robotic arms, legs. I want to be like them, sort of. I want to be at least like Johnny Silverhand with his robotic arm. But no! Instead, we get to customize our genitals. What's the point of that? What about the females? Is that even an option for them? But anyway, either way, there is absolutely no point. It's they kind of went through the trouble of being able to, have you customize not only the size of your dong, but you can have it circumcised or not. Wow, that's some real immersion right there. That's the right point of immersion, right? That's what we needed. But no, absolutely not. Anyway, look, I just wanted the option to look more robotic, okay? Also, you can't even revisit your customization on your character. You're stuck with what you have from the beginning. No barbershop, no plastic surgery, anything of that sort. Even though you have rippers operating your body all the time to upgrade your cyberware. You can, however, change your armor and clothes to, as a means of changing the customization or look on your guy or gal. However, you can't transmog, so you'll have to look like a mixed bag during the early parts of the playthrough, right? So that you can get the best stats at the time. You can change your hands into like other cyber parts like the gorilla arms and other such body weapons like the mantis blades. But otherwise, really, you're shit out of luck when it comes to like really wanting to have a fun time customizing your guy or gal. Now, later on in the game, as you collect more armor mods and being able to craft those armor mods to get better ones, you can technically sort of transmog or whatever, meaning you can slap on those mods to make the other early armors more viable by boosting your stats dramatically. You can do that, but some armors have more slots, and you definitely want to run into situations where you wish that you had this hat, for example. You can't really slap that look of the hat onto this really good hat that has the most slots for mods. I just wish I could do that. You know what I mean? Instead of rocking the really good beanie, I want to like rock this really cool looking straw hat or whatever, like the Asian straw hat. But I can't do that. There's no transmogging, so that's the situation or case that I've run into where transmogging is still needed no matter what features are still present in the game. Now, of course, the game is in first-person view the entire way unless you're driving. If you've played the game, I think you'll come to understand why. But I do wish for an option of sorts for it, switching between third-person and first-person. Personally, I do prefer first person just because of the feel, or just I don't know, it just feels better for me in comparison to third person shooters. I know how people feel about having to look at their character, seeing what they're doing, seeing your guy with their customization and stuff like that. I do understand that, but in terms of feel, for me, I personally prefer the first person camera viewing of things. But for the sake of meeting the middle ground, I wish they have like different camera angles during conversations between your main character V and other people, like how it was done in Fallout 4. Something like that only happens in one or two very specific choices you make by the end of the game. And those parts looked really cool. They were really awesome. I was just like, wow. I wish I had more of that throughout my playthrough. Like, geez, that was very refreshing. Being able to see your character interact with the other character, that was really cool. Too bad there wasn't much of that until the end of things, really. So again, a lot of stuff is offered in the game, but they all really mean nothing, unfortunately. At least most of them anyway, especially with the choices you make. Now let's move on to the gameplay side of things, though. The combat with the shooting and melee was alright. It did feel clunky at first, but you kind of get used to it. Hacking during combat segments kind of feel trivial. I mean, you can roleplay and pretend to be this cool hacker fighting the bad guys, but I just found it more satisfying just instantly shooting them or beat them with the melee weapons or the ranged weapons that you have, while showing off your critical damage. I just wish hacking can allow for some like really funny animations, like the enemy can punch themselves out or shoot each other. You know what I mean? That would be really cool. I mean, there are some quick hacks, however, that allow you to like make the enemy kill themselves by just shooting them in the head. But I want to do more than just that. I want them to non-lethally like knock themselves out by, again, punching themselves in the face or just hitting them, in their cyber nuts or something. I don't know. I mean, they could have had fun with this, but again, it needed more time in the oven here. It would really feel like you're immersed in this universe where a lot of the enemies have taken advantage of cyberware and stuff like that, but now you can use that against them in a way. That would have been really cool if they allow you to do all those things, like I said, or wished would happen in the game. There could have been many chances to have so much fun with this concept, this side of things when it comes to the whole like cybernetic thing. But no, they just really like went this like really dry route. I guess for the sake of time here. It's really apparent that CD Projekt Red is new to this sort of game, especially during the driving, man. That is just really shitty in my opinion. It felt like riding on soap, but you still got to point A to B, I guess, although you do run into number of pedestrians by accident, and that sets off the police as well. It's like, oh god, well, there goes that. I mean, there's nothing I can do about that. The driving sucks. I'm gonna hit people eventually, and then just gonna have to ride away real fast with my car because they don't chase you on their car anyway. So it's like just this minor annoyance. So with that and everything else, there's no consequence for driving good or bad. You don't get points for it. You don't get deducted or anything like that. You know, there's no like morale meter. I felt like that was needed, but maybe I'll talk about that later on. The weapon variety is decent, I think. The smart weapons, for me, are some of the funnest weapons in the game, as they really fit that time period really well. When it comes to the RPG and open world elements themselves, it actually is pretty fun. You're in a pretty decent sized map for you to explore. It does make for some decent fun. I'm definitely a sucker when it comes to these type of games, especially coming from playing Fallout 4 and Borderlands 3, you name it. As you level up, you earn more perks and abilities, which is very satisfying, but unfortunately lacks the depth that I was hoping for. A number of perks and abilities just really increase your stats by percentages, and not as much regard for crazy abilities and moves. There are some, but you just kind of wish for more in a world like this or in a game like this. You can also pick up weapons and armor of various grades from different places, and as well as you can like craft your own and upgrade them as you go on, especially the iconic weapons. Unfortunately, some of that is bugged as well, as more specifically the armor. I guess you really can't get all the crafting blueprints in a way on your first playthrough unless you know them in advance, especially for someone like me who played it from day one. I'm like pretty shit out of luck, so when it comes to finding like cool armor blueprints, I guess I missed out on that. I'm shit out of luck, that sucks. it's just so like heartbreaking, I guess. I can't find these possible really cool armor blueprints for me to craft on my own. It seems like it's very inconsistent throughout each vendor. So sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But either way, it sucks. Also, be careful not to throw away those iconic weapons like I did to a few, because those weapons will get stronger once you earn certain crafting abilities, and as you level up, they level up with you, I think. So just stash them away and so that you don't throw them away by accident. I wish for a locking feature on your items so that you don't accidentally get rid of them somehow. Gee, that's like one of the basic features that they just missed. Now, yes, you can't throw away the Johnny's stuff, which I wish that was applied to all the iconic weapons in the first place. Now, before I forget to insert this part, when it comes to the RPG element side of things, there are some like stats and stuff like that don't really show up. Like, you don't know what works, you don't know what doesn't. Some people say you can't really stack the critical damage mods in this one armor, or you definitely can't do the critical chance stacking on this armor, right? It's just so inconsistent and all over the place, and there's just a lot of things that don't add up, right? And the calculation, stuff like that is very inconsistent. So like, when you craft this gun, sometimes the damage seems really low, but when you actually craft the gun, the stats go up really high because it levels with you. So if you're a high level, the gun will be at a much higher starting point than you would think, but the initial stats block from you making that sort of decision right away with confidence. So again, like the stats and the math, the way things work, it's just really inconsistent. You don't know what you can't stack, what you can stack. So the RPG elements, while they're fun, they're satisfying when initially. When you want to really get down to things, it's a mess. It's a mathematical mess. They need to work on that, and along with all the other bugs and glitches and all the other like kinks and holes, I guess you can say, or the cracks in the armor, they need to kind of really patch up here. The stats are just all over the place, just like the whole game itself. Cyberpunk is one of those games where you should pick and choose carefully of where your stats go, your stat points go. So if you want to specialize in melee weapons, you gotta focus on your body tree, for example. Assault rifles and any other certain weapons will go up to other trees if you want to focus there. Stealth, you name it. The important tree to pay attention, at least in my opinion, is the technical tree, because that allows you to craft powerful weapons, which is uber important, so keep that in mind. In any case, I do appreciate being able to freely cater to a build of your liking, to anything of your choice, really. So I do appreciate that.
Hey, V, wait a sec. Listen to that guy. How'd you rate his chops?
To my untrained ear, sounds alright, I guess. I mean, it's easy listening at least.
Know why? Technique's second rate, but the feeling, that's what counts.
You see, there really is a foundation for a really fun game here. It's got the content of a full open world game at the start. Unfortunately, it's just so riddled with bugs and glitches, and not to mention the missed promises and features. The story itself, for the most part, is good. I honestly didn't feel anything strong towards the story. It just wasn't bad. Entertaining to say the least, and interesting regarding to the whole cyber appeal. You know, if you really want to get into the whole deep side of things and the philosophical side of things when it comes to the consciousness, the soul or whatever, having your personality copied to essentially what it is, a USB drive. Now, when it comes to Keanu Reeves' performance as Johnny Silverhand, it was certainly a treat. It was certainly entertaining and engaging. I did like his presence.
I gotta show him I'm still a scrappy street kid at heart. And you just the wrong place, wrong time.
A scrappy street kid. What? Who sits his ass on leather in the VIP area? Not the most convincing underdog story I've heard.
Despite the range of emotions being pretty limited, like whenever he sounds angry or is supposed to sound angry.
V, I've declared war not because capitalism's a thorn in my side or out of nostalgia for an America gone by. This war's a people's war against a system that spiraled out of our control. It's a war against the fucking forces of entropy. Understand?
There could have been more anger to there, right? But unfortunately, you know, with all that said, the story really revolves around him more than you. So that's a negative point that I could get behind when, you know, other people complain about that. You get a good chunk of Mr. Silverhand's past rather than yours, so it doesn't really establish where you come from, really. I mean, sure, you can pick a bunch of, like, life paths and stuff like that, but it doesn't really establish where you really come from, so you can't really lay a connection to yourself to this character, V here, who is supposed to be the main character. You know, it doesn't really give you an engaging sort of point as to why you should care for your main character. Now, yes, he's supposed to represent you in a way, but I feel like in this case here, this time around, you know, for a game like this, the game is supposed to represent V rather than so much you. I mean, yeah, you can customize your look and everything, but again, it just doesn't feel like it's supposed to be you per se. It's more of a character-driven thing that is V. So I could have used more of V's past to kind of really get connected with him. I think at some point that really took a big change when someone decided to throw in Keanu Reeves at some point. I think that was one of the big changes during the middle of development, and they had to like make a change around and stuff like that. I think we'll probably see something about that once the big interviews come out from the former devs or the staff of CD Projekt Red that decided to quit at the time. Speaking of side stories, the side missions are where you get to know V, the MC, better as a person. Or I guess you in a way, I don't know.
Now hold up, yo. Let's all be chill for a second.
You've got 1 hour to get out of Night City and never look back.
Oh, my sweet fucking Jesus. Thank you. I knew you could.
Shut the fuck up. I wasn't finished. If I ever see your face again, I'll gut you and string you up by your insides. Understand? Now start walking.
Now, sure, there are side missions where it's the typical wipe this base sort of mission, whether you use stealth or not, which, by the way, that's also arbitrary, since the rewards aren't that much different, other than some like extra eddies or euro dollars and an item you can just buy from the vendor anyway. How you approach things is free, so I do appreciate that. I mean, it's open. You can do it by stealth, be that sneaky motherfucker, or, you know, just go all out, Rambo style, kill everyone, loud and proud, right? But then there are the ones that are actually kind of clever. Those stories are very compelling in comparison to the main story. I wouldn't blame people if they found the side stories better than the main story. Adding to the main story elements, the brain dance. This was actually a really neat concept that was just underexplored. Utilized so much more during the side missions, but no, it largely was just a device to move the story forward and mostly referred and not actually used. There's only like very few instances where it came handy, but again, it's just a device, a plot device to move the story forward. This could have been another opportunity to sort of shape up your results, your end results, right? The consequences you may have to live with, you know what I mean? Let's say you find the wrong clues, which happens in detective work a lot. That could have been really cool to see what sort of outcome would have turned out for you. You know, it could have been a little more unique than others when you're comparing playthroughs with each other. The main story isn't even that long either. I don't think it's like that many hours or anything like that. The quality and the writing of the main story isn't so bad though. But I must say, I do really appreciate the variety and quality of the side missions that were offered here. I think it's just one of the greatest strengths that this game boasts. You also get to know a number of characters, and they're all pretty cool. I found myself really liking, you know, Panam, Judy, River, etc. There are a few side missions where it actually adds to your end game, sort of, depending on how much, you know, time you spent with certain characters. They will appear in the ending credits of sorts with a different set of dialogue. So if you do like a bad ending, they'll talk shit at you. If you do a good ending, they talk good about you in a way. Although it is disappointing that you don't get to see characters like Takemura and more paths you take, unless you choose this like corporal path or whatever, right? The Arasaka ending, I guess you can call it. If you pick that one, I guess you can get the Takemura dialogue thing, the ending dialogue thing. You don't even get the other side characters talking to you by the end of things, like Delamain. I felt like Delamain was a pretty prominent character or side character. That had a lot of things to offer, like the whole consciousness and, you know, robots with feelings, you know, that side of the conversation of things when it comes to cybernetics and stuff like that. The future talk, you know what I mean? Other side characters too, like Wakako and some of the fixers, right? I feel like they were pretty prominent in your journey, right? You can romance certain characters depending on your choices, and it can also depend on how you end your game as well. Although there's no outlasting effect, like calling them to your aid or unlocking certain abilities, you know, like something what Fallout 4 did as well. I mean, again, I hate to make the comparison, but I can't help it. Okay, I honestly prefer Judy. That's just me, right? But my character was a guy, you know, with the masculine voice and everything. I couldn't get with Judy because, you know, Judy prefers female, so I was, you know, locked out of that. But the game allowed me to go with my second choice, which was Panam, which I also really liked, and I chose Panam and the Albacados, or whatever they're called. I like to call them avocados as a joke. Anyway, I chose them to help me fight the Arasaka company, the evil corporation of the story. Which, in my opinion, that's the type of choice that kind of is looked at as the best ending.
And remember, I'm indebted.
Okay, back to town, V.
But as I said before, you really don't get to live with those choices by the end. So it really sucks in that sense. While, yeah, you can earn certain items, like a jacket or something like that, or a hammer by the end of things. But I think that's only in 2 endings, I think. So you really don't really have much to get off from. Anyway, I just wish for more. perhaps different interactions between other characters. That could have been really cool, like, you know, Panam and Judy, for example, River or Panam, Delamain and Takemura somehow, you know what I mean? That would have been really cool. Like, I want to see those two interact somehow. Like, they can get in on some philosophical conversations maybe. I don't know. The possibilities are up there. Now, to touch up on other points, whenever the chaos of bugs and glitches and other stuff aren't happening, the game can be beautiful. The overall art direction and designs is vibrant. Like, even as my settings weren't super high or anything like that, it still looked pretty beautiful, you know? Night City ain't Night City for nothing. The variety of locations are nicely complemented by this. The modeling on the important characters is good. The sound design and music is also good. There are some actual tracks, you know, whether it's like the copyright version or non-copyright option or not. The music was actually pretty good. I found some of the songs pretty catchy that I found during my playthrough. When it comes to the sound effects, I just wish some of the reloading sounds could have been a little different, you know. Some of them have that like plasticky sound to them. I mean, maybe they could have some like high advanced composite plastic parts to them. Maybe that's why they would make those sounds, I guess. But a little more work could have been had to make those reloading sound effects a little more satisfying. But that's just my personal thing. Ultimately, Cyberpunk 2077 could have been this milestone RPG first-person shooter that paved the way for the 9th gaming generation with so much to offer. But it came out as half-baked, broken, linear of an FPS game with just missing features that was crying for more time in the oven, as said by many players at this point. A lot of things felt arbitrary, the city life felt plain, even with all those sprinkles on top. The death RPG aspect of things could have gone deeper. So right now it just feels like a GTA, Fallout, Borderlands, and all those other games, right? With that Cyberpunk genre sort of mushed together. And those franchises have done it way better, honestly, in the past. Much of its faults are thanks to the greedy and shady practices of CD Projekt Red, a company that was once beloved during the days of Witcher 3. You know, with all that anticipation, the hype, promotions, the promises, all that came crashing down on that day. Really hard. The game could have been just sold for the new generation consoles and PC and release it at a later date. You know, it could have sold so much more, even with the later release date. You know, imagine what would have happened if this was released back in April 2020, the initial release date. Man, it's just so sad, man. It's just so sad that it came to this. And everyone at CD Projekt Red is pretty much paying for it, even though this is likely the choices made by the higher-ups of CD Projekt Red. Greed. And being on that high horse. That's why. How the mighty have fallen.
Shit!
So with all that said, Cyberpunk 2077 is gonna get a 6 out of 10 from me. Underneath all that rubble is a core for a good game. You gotta wait for this game with the big patches, hopefully coming soon, but this is my review as the game launched. And my point still stands that products need to work as soon as you buy them on release day. You don't want this bullshit about having games fixed later. You know, we pay for the greatest experiences now, not later. You see how that works? It's happened too many times with so many of the AAA games nowadays. Let's hope at this point the game can only get better with all the patches coming in, and of course all the possible future DLC as well. We can only wait and hope. So that is it from me on this review on Cyberpunk 2077. Hope you guys liked it. I know there's a bit of a change right here with the lack of a green screen. I just kind of wanted to make this a little streamlined for the sake of things this time around. But I am playing around with this format. You may see this one more time with another game, possibly Yakuza Like a Dragon, once I get around to that. But anyways, leave any of those feedback and comments down below, and I'll definitely check them out and keep them noted duly for the sake of whether I should do this sort of format or not. Let me know, please. Really helps out. This has been my review on Cyberpunk 2077. Man, I really hoped that this was going to be just a mind blower, but instead it just kind of fried my brain in a way and left me disappointed quite a bit. Anyways, thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys in the next video. Sean out.